You wrote, quote, "My primary artistic philosophy is centered around the idea of the mess. This idea is an apt description of both my views on the human condition and my personal artistic process." What do you mean by the mess?
Well, I mean, it's a literal mess. That's what it is. I think that before I answer that thing, I think one thing that was a big part of understanding, or a big part of my artistic journey, was when I was younger and I started painting and I was working, and I had friends that worked in a gallery. And I asked them, listen, like, can I exhibit with you guys? And they were hesitant. And I was like, why won't you give me a shot? Like, what is going on? And then they said to me, "Listen, it's because you don't know what your work's about. Like, what's your work about? Tell me." And then I was standing there, and I was like, kind of flabbergasted. I couldn't express an idea. So then I realized, wow, okay, maybe I don't know why I'm painting or what I'm trying to express. And I think, then I started really thinking about it and going into it, and that's kind of over the years, that's kind of what came out is. And I realized that when I'm looking into myself and into people, like, I realized that nobody has a great handle on their emotional responses. You could be the greatest meditator on earth, but your emotions sure as hell aren't compartmentalized. And I realized that, the actions that people take, the way that they treat each other, the way that I treat people, the way that I feel, the way that I think, like, it's often so convoluted, so pushed together. It's just a cyclone. I always said that, like, two people coming together in a relationship is just two whirlwinds just pushing into each other and colliding until they try and make the eye of the storm meet, right? And that's
Wow.
because I inherently view people as very emotionally messy things. Like, we don't have handles on ourselves. Like, even if we think we feel one thing, what we're feeling is like a mixture of 50 things, and we say, oh, that's sad, right? Like, so firstly,
Yes.
it's based on the idea that I think our internal lives are not organized. Even though I try to be, we don't have very organized internal lives. And then when it comes to my process on paper, the way that I paint is not very structured, organized, or pretty. Um, I literally try and draw images out from messes. The only way that I know how to paint is to create 50, 60, 100 different kinds of messes on a paper. I mean, like, I can pull anything out here. Like, you look at this and it's like, what is this? Like, this is nothing, right? Like, but then you look at this and it's also like, what is happening here? What is this stuff, And for me, it's just, and I have hundreds of this stuff. I'm not even kidding. Like, it's just millions of these things, right? And so those are just messes, in my opinion. And I need to
Yeah.
go back and draw something out of them. Like, and it's a similar sense
Mm.
of how we make sense of our emotions. Going into these paintings is making, kind of drawing boundaries somewhere and saying, what could this be? Like,
Yes.
the idea of mess is because on some philosophical level, I view people and as messes, and my process is a mess. So, and a mess in the sense that I have to try and be a little bit wild and just create some random stuff on a page. I guess it's a little bit of pareidolia on some level, drawing out like imagery from random shapes and stuff. That's definitely a part of it, but you have to have a good mess before you can make a good image for me.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to break an egg to make an omelet, in a way.
I have to break so many eggs. And if I had to tell you how many eggs are just lying around and never. There's pictures that I started 9 years ago that I'm finishing this year. You know what I'm saying?
Wow. Wow.
Like I have stacks and stacks and stacks of paper where I've made stuff on it that I just didn't know how to finish. And then
Hmm.
years later, I pick it up and I'm like, huh, I've picked up something that I can use here. And then you work into it. But to answer your question, that's why mess is so integral. Mess is my process, but mess is also my perspective.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I love that, man. And it's just, I'm reminded of a quote by Flannery O'Connor. She said something like, how do I know what I think until I write what I say? And the way you extract form and, I would say, meaning from the mess, and the way we extract form and shape and meaning from our emotions, to me, that there's a parallel to that in writing, because even our thoughts, our conceptualizations, our concepts, our ideas are very messy. You might
Mm.
walk around for 5 years thinking you understand a concept, and then when you have to explain it to somebody, you realize that it's very vague, it's very abstract.
Yeah.
You have all these blank spots that you've kind of just put, plywood on top of, and you've ignored. And then when you have to write it out, it's that I'm reminded of that same process of extracting form and structure, and then it
Mm.
forces you to kind of map it out. And I really like that idea. Yeah, so it's like, it's not just, oh, life is a mess, too bad. It's okay, life
It's
is
a
a
little bit like
mess.
that. Yeah.
But I actually agree. Like, I do think
Life's the best
I
too
do think
bad, baby.
yeah, yeah. But I put the emphasis on life's a mess, too bad. Let's deal with it now, right? Like,
Sorry, I
let's do,
interrupted you
what
so
are we gonna do?
rudely. I'm sorry,
No,
I
it's okay.
interrupted you.
No, it's okay. We talked earlier about this new rule system with podcasting,
No.
right? Where, but no,
And
don't even
I'm a
interrupt.
total amateur in this space, man. You were making a point, like you were saying, it's not a matter of mess too bad, but what's the next step? What is the next thing?
Well, I would just say that, yeah, if I could speak as a Catholic, I would say, well, we're all sinners, but now we have to
Mm.
learn how to live with that, and to move forward with that. So, like, we're all problematic. Like, reality itself is problematic, in a way. Well, not, that's maybe too broad, but uh, the world and our place in it is in many ways fallen. There's like issues, there's problems. Everybody's a basket case, if I could put it that way.
Mm.
And you can either put your head in the ground like an ostrich and just ignore it and be sad and sulky, and or you can accept your mess and try and draw some form and structure out of it, and try and be 1% of a useful mess to somebody, and help that
Yeah.
person, you know what I mean? Like, and I think your art does that, right? It kind of shows us that this is going to sound so cliche, but there's a beauty in the mess.
Mm.
There is a form within the mess. You just have to stare at that canvas long enough, and you have to develop yourself long enough and your abilities, so that you can eventually pull something out of it.
Well,
um
the most my the feedback that I get on my art the most is I like your art, but I won't want to put it on my wall. I just don't want it on my wall. That's literally something that I hear at least every couple of months. And maybe it's because I don't paint so good, but I don't know. Who knows? But on that note, like I think when I talk about mess or you know to me it's yes, our interactions with the world at large defines a lot of that chaos as well, but I think that I'm just so intensely interested in like just the inner life of, and this is going to sound like so pretentious slash egocentric, but I'm just so interested in my own inner life. There's enough going on in here that I don't have to try and like help. I don't have to make sense of the Palestine issue or anything like that,
yes.
right? I'm not tackling that in my art. What I'm tackling is simply a one man's relationship with his emotions,
Yes.
and hopefully through that tackling of my own relationship with my emotions, there's a universality that others can tap into. You know, so when you said, it's you're a mess too bad kind of situation, or what did you exactly? I don't think you said you're a mess, but it's a mess too bad. It is kind of that situation with your feelings as well. Like you have so many complex emotions. What you gonna do about it? You know, are you?
Mm.
I guess most of us just try and ignore it. But I think a big pursuit for me is to say, okay, I'm walking alongside. I almost view emotions as like this bunch of animals walking alongside you. Imagine a pack of cats in all kinds of different sizes following you around. That's your emotions. And you can either choose to acknowledge them and have a relationship with them, or you can live your life in fear and eventually just get eaten when you die. That
Mm.
might happen anyway, but it's, you have to kind of name each cat, get to know the cats. No, man, that's a messy
Yeah.
metaphor, but you get
No,
it.
no. Well, let me just say, I love the way you tied it to cats eating people after they die. That was good. Yeah, I would just say it's like my favorite. Well, I shouldn't say my favorite, but some of my favorite moments in life are when a friend or someone close to you reveals something about you to yourself. So you'll
Mm,
be walking with a friend, and in my case, it happens all the time with my wife, where we'll be hanging out, and I'll say something, and we were watching a movie once, and I made like this critique. She's like, you're so eager to critique this genre. I can't even remember what movie it was. You're so eager to find problems in this movie. And I remember not getting upset or defensive. I was actually surprised. I was like, really? Do I do that? Am I really like that? I
mm,
didn't realize. And then she's like, yeah, you are. And that's so valuable when somebody does that to you, says that to you, because it's like the pupil in your eye is too close to itself, right? It can't see itself. There's
mm,
elements to yourself that can't see itself. Arrogant people don't know they're arrogant. And so when somebody reveals that to you, it's somebody pointing out a cat, to stick with your metaphor, that you didn't even know was there.
yeah. So, yeah.
Right?
Well,
There was another cat.
it's not necessarily if the cat in this metaphor, the cat would be the emotion that makes you react in that way.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
yes, yeah. Yeah, it might be a flea on one of the cats. So
yeah, yeah,
it
yeah,
might
yeah,
be
yeah.
an issue related to an emotion, but you could never see that emotion was causing that issue. You were blind to that issue. But now that you know about the issue, you can revisit the emotion, and now you
Mm.
can start saying, okay, where does this come from? And to me, that just sounds like maturity. That just sounds like understanding. To me, the most one of the most mature things someone can say is, you know what, sometimes I'm an asshole. To me, that's
Mm,
maturity. If you can't admit that sometimes you're a jerk, if you can't admit that sometimes you are spiteful, petty, sometimes you are unwilling to work with other people, you're implacable, you're just stubborn, like, at least if you're aware of it, you could kind of try and spot it when it arrives. But
mm.
if you don't want to even acknowledge it, then when it arrives, you're not gonna acknowledge it, and you're gonna let it kind of possess you, and it's gonna take you over. And then other people and yourself in the long run are gonna suffer those consequences.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I wouldn't say that this was an out like an outset when I started making art, but I think it kind of came along as I was going. But I am a little bit tired of people having like two-dimensional emotional lives. Like they're either happy or they're sad. Like that's the only two
Yes.
things you can be. And I'm hoping that like sometimes through engaging with my own art, I can discover nuances in emotions that I didn't know that were there, and that I can potentially do the same thing for other people. It's not that I've got this big, grand plan or quest that I'm on, but
Yeah.
I have noticed that people would. either lean into my art or shy away from my art, based on how comfortable they are, maybe like exploring certain emotions or highlighting certain things. And I think definitely this process for me has, like you said, made me aware of so many different types of emotions and things that I might not have been aware of, like maybe 10 years ago. It's not like I'm some emotional expert, but it is fun
Yes.
um, to track these more nuanced perspectives on emotions. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.